Let's take a trip back to 2021. 2021, the Milwaukee Bucks were on top of the world. They had just won the NBA championship after steamrolling through the East dang near and beating the Phoenix Suns in 6 games. Giannis had an all-time Game 6 performance. He was crying sitting on the bench. He won Finals MVP. Chris Middleton had a great playoff stretch as well. The bench was playing phenomenal. Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton. Everything was going right for the Bucks. But fast forward 4 years later, now we're in 2025, and it's around that same time again. However, the Milwaukee Bucks are not being viewed as that same team 4 years ago, which makes sense. Since then, this roster has had a lot of turnover. For starters, Mike Budenholzer is no longer the coach. Now you have Doc Rivers. And before Doc Rivers, there was another coach behind that, but he was not very good. And Milwaukee struggled for a while because of this. Then players like Chris Middleton are no longer on the team. Drew Holiday got shipped to the Celtics, and now the Bucks are faced with Giannis, Dame, and their third option being Kyle Kuzma. And a couple years ago, this might have sounded a bit nice, but the Bucks of today are not the Bucks of a couple years ago, and it is why the Bucks aren't really being viewed as contenders in today's NBA. Now, of course, entering the 2024-2025 NBA season, Milwaukee had championship aspirations. They were going into their second season with their superstar duo in Giannis and Dame. You had Chris Middleton on the roster. You were hoping that someone like Pat Connaughton or Bobby Portis would kind of take a step. Still had Brook Lopez, who was playing decent enough. You had some young players who you were hoping this would be the year they would kind of show some flashes. It was just a lot of optimism in Milwaukee for the Bucks to be good. However, as the season has gone on, we just see a team that just lacks a lot. They kind of lack their identity for a team, lack some type of continuity and consistency to be a great team, and they just don't match up with the heavy hitters like the Knicks or the Celtics or the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference. Now, before I continue talking about how bad the Bucks have been this season, make sure you leave a like on this video because I'm sure you're going to enjoy it, and make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Make videos like this all the time. But let's get right back into it. The first area that Milwaukee has struggled on immensely is none other than on the offensive side of the ball. Despite boasting one of the better, more talented star duos in the league with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard, the Bucks have an extremely mediocre offense. They both just about a 113 offensive rating, which is good enough for 15th in the league. They're 23rd in assists per game, bottom of the league in points in the paint, 28th in fast break points. They are just mediocre. Milwaukee Bucks just cannot establish and find an identity on the offensive side of the ball. They struggle to score the ball in the paint. They don't really force turnovers, and they're not really able to convert on a lot of turnovers, which is evidenced by them being so low in fast break points. And when they have the ball on the offensive side of the floor, they just can't put it in the basket consistently enough. And Coach Doc Rivers kind of spoke on it best. Now, mind you, Doc Rivers is a coach who, in my opinion, is very overrated and very mediocre and lives very heavily off of that ring with the Celtics back in the 2000s. But he has had success with certain teams. He just can't take it far. And I honestly can't say his teams have performed this bad in the regular season before. But he spoke to it best. They're not shooting. They can't really convert. They're not really getting the right spacing. They're missing shots. It's just a whole bunch of things going wrong in Milwaukee. And it kind of makes you wonder what all is happening. Some of it is due to play design and Doc's inability to properly coach a competent offense in the NBA. And these reasons more so are why the Bucks went out on the trade deadline and made a huge move to get Kyle Kuzma for Chris Middleton. And the idea with Kyle Kuzma being on the team was Chris Middleton just wasn't able to be consistent enough and put up the numbers he was before due to injuries in the same amount of minutes. So you get Kyle Kuzma who could fill in that, and he could play more minutes. Also, you could see them play as a more so small ball lineup, which was so successful for them back in 2021. Unfortunately, though, this tactical advantage that they could have has not been used with Giannis at the 5, as a lineup featuring Kyle Kuzma at the 4 and Giannis at the 5 has only been used for a mere 14 minutes, which is plain unacceptable and something that you should at least try to look into because, like I said, this exact thing won you a championship 4 years ago. Now, 4 years ago is a long time, trust me. I understand. But why not try it again, especially while Giannis is still playing at this high of a level? And not only would this help you offensively, it would improve your defense immensely. Because a player like Brook Lopez, who is still very valuable to Milwaukee and is very good in certain matchups, just isn't able to kind of hang with those younger, more athletic teams. For example, when they played OKC a couple days ago, or a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, the players shot 66% when guarded by Brook Lopez. And this includes Isaiah Hartenstein, who shot 88% when he was defended by Brook Lopez, who I would assume was his main matchup. And that's why, to me, the solution to fix this is very simple. Run the lineup of Kyle at the 4 and Giannis at the 5, and just have Brooks sub in occasionally, but you're definitely going to have to reduce his minutes as you see more switches and mismatches, and teams are just playing out more athletic than you and younger than you in the playoffs. In 2021, 2022, years before, years after, the Bucks were one of the top defenses in the NBA consistently. It was just something that was known. The Bucks were going to be a top seed in the East. They were going to be the best defense in the East. You had to worry how you could score them. Now, teams know how to score them. Attack Brook Lopez, attack somebody on the perimeter. It's just a lot of holes in the Bucks now, but I guarantee you this switch would mitigate a lot of it. And a big part of this falls on Doc Rivers, which is something I spoke on earlier. Doc Rivers was supposed to bring kind of a championship mindset to the Bucks, which of course they already had with Giannis and Brook Lopez and other players who are still on the team since from that 2021 championship team. But Doc Rivers was supposed to bring it from a head coaching perspective, and he just hasn't. Doc Rivers' inability to be able to make adjustments throughout the season, throughout games, and just to not be a very high-level thinking coach has hindered the Bucks a lot, which is why you continue to see Brook Lopez running it back at center game after game after game, and it is why you keep on seeing the Bucks get exploited defensively game after game after game. And this is a big reason as to why after the Bucks lost to a Steph Curry-less Warriors, it was just Jimmy Butler. However, Giannis and Dame were playing, and they lost. After this huge loss, Dame and Giannis called a meeting with Doc Rivers just to kind of rethink the whole way that this thing is run. And when it comes to a record perspective, the Bucks have just been even worse. Now, they had a stretch off the All-Star break where they were 7-1. They looked pretty good. However, since then, they've just continued to falter as they dropped a good amount of their last 7 games. And now they find themselves as the 5th seed in the East, but only have a game in front of the Detroit Pistons, who are surging and are one of the most exciting teams in all of basketball this season. And if I had to guess, I think they're probably going to overtake the Bucks for that 5th seed, which is just pretty underwhelming. Couple this with the fact that the Bucks have yet to beat any of the top 3 teams, so the Knicks, the Cavaliers, and the Celtics in the East this season. It's not really something you want to have on, attached to your team at this point in the season, especially if you're looking to win a championship. And it looks like you're going towards another disappointing playoff finish this year. And it's crazy because I remember when they were looking at Doc Rivers to hire as a replacement. I'm blanking on the old coach's name, but when they were looking at Doc Rivers to hire as a replacement for the old coach, I was saying, please don't do it. You guys aren't going to be good. Doc Rivers is not a good coach. He doesn't really make adjustments. He's a big reason as to why Philadelphia had got him out the door kind of early. He's a big reason as to why he was out of LA. It just wasn't really going to bode well. Yet they hired him anyway, and I can't really say I'm too surprised as to what's happening now. This core around Giannis and Dame makes sense. You're paying Dame and Giannis all of this money, so no way these players are going to be able to perform at a high. You weren't going to be able to acquire players who are going to be able to perform at a high level. It's kind of why they traded Drew away. They weren't going to be able to pay him. And players like Pat Connaughton and Bobby Portis are not performing at a very high level, not the same level that we saw them perform at in that 2021 championship run, which is why the Bucks find themselves in the position that they are in. Now, if Doc Rivers somehow has an epiphany and he decides to make some of these changes implemented, they could possibly go deeper into the playoffs and do better than I anticipate them doing. But they still won't get far at this point. I still don't see them being the likes of the Celtics or the Cavaliers or the Knicks at this point, honestly. You haven't beat them all season. Can't expect you to do it now. It's a bit too late to kind of make that significant of a change right here in the season. On top of that, it seems like the Bucks have a lot of internal issues going on. You call a meeting with Doc, just with, your star players and the head coach, and then it somehow gets to the media, somehow gets to all of the fans around the NBA. It's not really something you want to happen, and the changes we're talking about are pretty significant. So that's why I don't think Milwaukee's going to really go very far, and they should really just look to see how to move forward in the offseason and see what they can do differently. But these are just my opinions. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments about the Bucks. You think they can turn around, have a pretty good playoff run in the Eastern Conference, or do you think they're going to be out round 1, round 2 max? Depending on if they're able to keep that 5th seed. Let me know in the comments. Make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed the video. But that's all I have. And until next time, peace.